There's a sidewalk in Manhattan where you walk at your own risk. Despite months of complaints, concrete is still crumbling. In tonight's Shame on You report, correspondent Arnold Diaz looks into the tempests on 23rd Street.
Shame on you. You're looking at one of the meanest streets in New York if you happen to be blind or use a wheelchair. This is West 23rd Street between 6th and 7th Avenue, the very block on which the Associated Blind apartment building is located. A couple of hundred people who use canes or wheelchairs live in the building. Yet look at the sidewalk on their block. It is so badly cracked and buckled and broken that it presents a real danger to their already difficult lives. Nancy Parachi's cane gets caught in the crevices.
It's a hazard to anybody.
And Jeff Krause has to wheel himself out into traffic to cross the street because the crosswalk has been so unevenly patched and paved that the bumps are now too big for his chair to get over.
High enough that trying to go over it is ridiculous. You know, it tips the chair over one way or the other.
It was Flo Fox who called Shame on You about the miserable conditions on West 23rd Street.
Being in a wheelchair, you feel every crack, every bump.
Flo is legally blind and has multiple sclerosis. She's also a fighter. Her weapon, a camera. Well known in the art world as the blind photographer, Flo has just enough hazy vision to see where to point her autofocus camera. The results document the man-made obstacles she faces. The curb too high for her wheelchair to get up. The trash basket blocking her access to a curb cut. And the cracked sidewalk on West 23rd where she lives. A picture she calls personal earthquake. Now, it's not that the people here haven't complained. You've got 200 people on this block who use canes or wheelchairs, and many of them say they've been complaining to the city for well over a year.
I wrote a complaint last year to the whatever agency is in charge of this, and nothing has happened.
So the Department of Highways came out here to look at the sidewalks after you complained?
They claim to,
Yeah.
and nothing has been done about it.
The city says it is taking action. Last year it put a temporary patch on some of the rough spots, and major sidewalk repairs are scheduled in 2 months. But the fact is the city admits it has known about this problem for 4 years. And so we induct into our Hall of Shame the City Transportation Department for letting this problem fall through the cracks for so long.
Shame on you. Fix that cracked sidewalk.
Shame on you, New York.
Shame on you.
Now, I should note that it's really the responsibility of the landlords to maintain the sidewalks in front of their buildings. But as a last resort, the city can fix those sidewalks and then bill the landlords. And that's apparently what's going to happen in a couple of months, hopefully. I'll return to West 23rd Street then to see for myself. If you've got a candidate for our Hall of Shame, write to Shame on You at WCBS TV, 524 West 57th, New York, New York, 10019. Brian.
What has been the problem? Why are they resisting the repairs?
Now, 4 years ago, they got their first complaint. They served a summons on a landlord. Nothing happened. And now it's been a matter of trying to get the money from the city in the budget to go ahead and fix it and then bill the landlord. It's bureaucracy. To go on West 23rd Street between 6th and 7th Avenue in Manhattan, one of the meanest streets in New York if you happen to be blind or in a wheelchair. I reported then that the sidewalk was so badly cracked and buckled that it presented a real danger to the 200 disabled people who live in the Associated Blind apartment building on the block.
Being in a wheelchair, you feel every crack, every bump.
Well, I'm happy to report that there's been a change for the better here on West 23rd Street. Following my report, the City Transportation Department made good on its promise to fix the sidewalks here. It's particularly satisfying for Flo Fox, who had been trying for a year to get action and kept the pressure on until she won.
I write letters, I complain, I insist upon they putting things in writing, I let them know they're being watched, and then I called you.
So tonight we also take out of our Hall of Shame the New York City Transportation Department with a thumbs up for a job well done.
It's amazing how powerful that wagging finger of shame can be sometimes. If you've got a candidate for our Hall of Shame, write to me at Shame on You, WCBS TV, 524 West 57th Street, New York, New York, 10019.
Disabled people paying a big price.
Plus, passengers in trouble as their plane is stuck. But as the Shame on You team found out, in this case, it means a mess. Arnold Diaz reports on Transit Authority buses that are too dangerous for disabled people to ride.
Shame, 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 shame on you.
Can you pick me up?
Just when they are choosing the lift on the 84th and 85.
When?
I have a problem with it.
It's another frustrating day for Flo Fox, watching as one after another brand new city buses pull up and the drivers say, sorry, the wheelchair lift isn't working.
I don't know what happened. I just know we can't take it. If we put the key in it, it doesn't operate.
The new city buses all have wheelchair lifts as required by law, but not until the buses were put in service in the spring did the Transit Authority find out the lifts are so poorly designed they're actually a hazard to the disabled.
I almost tipped over sideways when I was coming off the lift in July.
As Terry Moakley of the Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association found out, the angle of the bottom ramp is too steep. It forces all the weight onto the back of the chair, and the front wheels actually come off the ground.
If I give it a good shove, at this point, the chair will just tip over backward.
Even if you make it up the ramp, you then have to clear the raised hinge to get onto the platform, another hazard. So many disabled riders have had problems with the lifts, the Transit Authority ordered the drivers of these new buses to stop using the wheelchair lifts until they can be fixed. So for the past 6 months, riders like Flo Fox, who ironically is the cover girl on the MTA's accessible travel brochure, have had to wait a lot longer for an accessible bus.
It can take over an hour. In the rain, it's horrendous.
How did it happen? If you went to buy a car, wouldn't you first try it out? Well, apparently the Transit Authority bought 167 buses for $33 million and never bothered to test out the wheelchair lifts.
We as a Transit Authority got the assurance that it was ADA compliant, and we acted on that.
The TA says it took the word of the manufacturer, TMC of Roswell, New Mexico, which guaranteed the wheelchair lift complied with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Only after the buses were put in service and the complaints began pouring in did the TA hire an expert to evaluate the lift.
We brought in a consultant in, and they found 3 areas where it was not compliant.
Activists in the disabled community, like Frida Zames, say the TA did it all backwards.
What makes sense is for us to first use the lifts, try out the lifts, before the transit people purchase them, and find out about the problems ahead of time.
Why didn't the TA have a disabled person test the lift before buying the buses? Because that's not the way it's done.
That has never been the process in the past.
The manufacturer is paying to retrofit the lifts, but there's a cost to the disabled riders, who on 40 bus routes around New York City are being passed by.
I've been waiting a long time.
I can't take it.
So into our Hall of Shame, we induct the manufacturer, TMC, and the Transit Authority for putting another obstacle in the path of the disabled. I'm Arnold Diaz, Channel 2 News.